Gospel music. I played gospel music with my brothers, Roman and Adam, in Manitoba when we were 14, 15, up until we left Roseau River in 1964. We would play in the church, in some of the churches in the towns near our place, and likewise in Minnesota. Lancaster, Minnesota is just across the border, several miles, and we would play there, and the Americans would treat us like stars, sort of. Our own in Manitoba, I'm the Kohut voice, spelled with K-O-H-O-O-T. That's the way my dad spelled it. And
big question, and I was going to ask that later, but you're addressing it now. How did you learn music, and what instruments did you play?
Yes.
And how did all that come about? Because you brought those gifts to Toronto, and that's a big part of it.
Yes. The music, we had a school teacher. Attended the school, grades 1 to 8 in a one-room school room actually, close to 40 students, 35, 40 students. And 1 year, I think I was in grade 6. Older brother was also in that class, and my younger brother was in that class. We had a school teacher. She was from a Baptist church, over Stoneville Baptist Church. A lot of history in that church. That was one of the first churches, Ukrainian Baptist church in that part of southern Manitoba. It's just 10 minutes south of where I grew up in Roseau River. And she played the mandolin.
Do you remember her name?
Her name is, or was, Pauline Nanahan. Today, my Sister Eileen, is married to her son, Ken Nanahan. the school, when we have our Christmas concerts in the Planky Plain School is what the name of the school was in Roseau River there, just a mile south. The students would buy the teacher a present. We always received 3 presents. We would pull names as a class, you'd get a present. So you don't know who has your name, but at a Christmas concert, you'd get that present. And then there was one from the school. The school board would buy you a present. I guess the teacher would pick those out. Santa Claus would bring those in. When he'd come running in at the end with his sack of toys. And then you would also get a goodie bag. A paper bag filled with apple and orange and candies, peanuts, all kind of nuts and candies. And each student would receive one of those. I used to like it when the school board would go to the next store, our neighbor's store, to prepare the school goodie bags, Christmas bags. They would alternate between my dad's store, because my dad's store, well, everything, I know what's here. But when it came from the neighbor's store, there was something different there, But anyway, the students did a collection, and we bought our school teacher a mandolin case. She used to have sort of a cloth canvas type of carrying case. We bought her a nice hard shell mandolin case. I guess she wanted to pay us back. She says to the class, is anybody interested in taking mandolin lessons, maybe guitar lessons, violin lessons? She will be teaching. And that's where I started with the mandolin. She would be teaching us to play, but just the regular tremolo style. But
is that during class time or after school?
There was a time, 1 hour or so every Friday, I think. There was sing time where the class would sing back in those days, and it was a program time, usually on a Friday afternoon. But you can bring your mandolin to school and practice anytime. But that was her lessons, teaching you how to play by note and stuff like this. But I like to play just by ear, and I would listen to some of these bluegrass pickers from down southern United States, and they played mandolin a little bit different, And I picked up some of their picking style, But when she heard me play that, she wasn't too impressed. This is the way you should be playing a mandolin. But I was impressed by their style. So that's where I got my brother. Roman would do the chording, I would do the picking, and my younger brother would do the violin. And that's where we started playing. My Uncle Johnny, would join us every so often with the harmonica. And then we had a good Christian friend from Sundown, Manitoba, Gary Foster. And he was a young student teacher. He must have been maybe 19 years old as a young teacher in one of the towns. And he was a Christian man. He played the accordion, and he would play the accordion with us. So this is the way we started in gospel music down in Manitoba.
There were 2 other instruments in the history of how you got to play the banjo and the harmonica.
Okay.
You're known for playing those 3 in many years with the Living Oak Singers.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I could never outlove the Lord.
picked the banjo. We didn't play amplified instruments. The banjo seemed to be the loudest, you know, understand? When you pick a banjo, it's loud. So I said, you know what, I want to be heard. So the fingering is more or less the same as a mandolin. The mandolin's got 4 strings, double, E, A, D, G. Now the banjo's got A, D, G, A, D, G, A, D, G. Okay, it's been a while now.
3 or 4 strings or 5?
It's 4 strings. A 4-string banjo, right? And it didn't sound as good as the 5, but I was afraid of the 5. And so I started picking on the banjo, and so the banjo was the main one when I traveled with my brothers. And we didn't sing; we just did the music, just did musicals. We were musical, just musical strings orchestra. The harmonica, my uncle Johnny. When he put his harmonica down, I would give it a tap and make sure look at that it's quite clean, and try to do exactly what he was doing. And I could kind of pick up on that. But every time, I don't know if I should tell you that, I can share this. Whenever my uncle would buy himself a brand new harmonica, well, here, boys, you can have this old one, you know. But when he would buy a brand new one, he would make sure that we would see, my brothers and I, that this is a brand new harmonica, and he would play a solo with his nose. With his nose. And nobody would touch it. No, and he would make sure nobody touches his harmonica. So that's Uncle Johnny for you. He has a great sense of humor. Maybe I got some of my sense of humor from him. I believe I got a lot of my sense of humor from the customers that would come to my dad's store. And we didn't have a television. We would know which of the farmers coming to the store, they had time to spare in the evening. Their chores are all done. They would just hang out and tell stories. And we would know which ones are, back in those days, we called Jack Benny. And that was a great comedian from way back when I was growing up as a kid. Or Bob Hope, those types. And those guys knew how to tell stories. Very much comedy, you know, and they would actually act them out, really dramatic, you know, and we would laugh, and we would also know which of the farmers would come to the store, and these were sour, grouch guys. They would, you know, there's a whiskey called Old Crow. I never drank that, Pete, but I know advertising magazines, Old Crow, and they were sour, and we had some ladies come to the store, and guys that were like that. They were just Old Crow, you know. They were sour. They were bitter. Life wasn't treating them well. And you know, they didn't attract you. They did not encourage you. But these funny fellows, you know, it was entertainment, and you would learn something from them. How they look at their outlook on life. And I think I picked up on that. I tend to live on the sunny side. My house faces south. It's not facing north, where the sun doesn't shine, and the sun is shining through the windows, and it's not cloudy. And this is what will see you through the cloudy days and some of the days when that aren't pleasant, or some of the occurrences that happen in your life which aren't pleasant. In 1964, in the fall of '64, I moved to Winnipeg. was employed there. Actually, started my first job was in a sewing factory as a shipper and receiver, surrounded by all these sewing machine operators. Peerless Garments was the place. 515 Notre Dame. I remember that. That was in the fall of 1964, and it was nice to be surrounded with all the beautiful women at Peerless Garments, and me as a shipper and receiver. Uncle, I stayed there for several months, and my uncle John Chibati, says there's openings as a machinist. If you want to learn to become a machinist, there's a company called Canadian Tool and Die Works, and so that's how I got to be a machinist. I had some training. I had training there, and worked there as a machinist in Winnipeg. Always attending church or coming back to Roseau River, taking the bus back to Roseau River on weekends, attending church at the Roseau River Baptist Church. If we weren't coming home, my brothers and I, we all lived together in Winnipeg now, 1964, 65. And we would attend the church in Winnipeg. We would attend the popular Calvary Temple in downtown Winnipeg. Pastor H. Barber, he's still alive. And on special occasions, we would attend the Ukrainian Baptist Church in Winnipeg on the corner of Redwood and Park Street. There, that church is still active today. In 1966, I felt an urge, I felt restless, and wanted to move on with my life, and I hated the cold Manitoba winters. I could never get used to them. I always complained. If there's anything I could complain about, it was the weather in Manitoba, wintertime. And I kept looking in the newspaper or listening to the radio, television, and I always noticed that the weather in Winnipeg was not in Winnipeg, in Vancouver on the west coast, was always so mild and beautiful during the winter time while we were freezing. And I decided, since I had an uncle living in Vancouver also, my dad's younger brother, I decided to move to Vancouver. I took my younger brother along with me. And I don't say I was living as an angel all these times while I was even in Winnipeg. You got mixed up with a crowd that doesn't really love Jesus as their Savior, especially the girls. And that was during the week. You kind of hang around with this crowd, but then on Saturday you would go to Youth for Christ, and Sunday you'd go to church. Even change your hairstyle, sort of. Let it all hang down like the Beatles style were popular back then. And this was in Winnipeg, but when you would go home, you would slick it back, and nobody would know what you're doing in Winnipeg. But anyways, moved to Vancouver and worked with actually hydro contractors up in the Squamish area, not far from where the 2010 Winter Olympics will be taking place, near Whistler. Worked there. My younger brother, he was engaged in Winnipeg, yet his fiance came over there. I arranged all their wedding. In fact, I helped and paid for the engagement ring in Winnipeg as an older brother. I arranged for their wedding there, the banquet, the whole works. After they were married, his wife and I went shopping, and we bought the furniture for the rental place. They had the 2 rooms, and it was a package deal.
This is Brother Adam.
This is Brother Adam, the youngest one. So he was looking up to me as his hero. And I didn't sort of look up to my older brother as a hero. I was just a maverick doing my own thing, you know. And I got kind of restless in Vancouver after living there for a year. While I was there, I did travel to Alaska, the West Coast. And I always wanted to go to California, so I kind of changed my name to Wally P. Coster with a K, and moved to Los Angeles. And I spent time in Los Angeles, but always went to church. I don't say I was a holy boy during the week, but always went to church. In Los Angeles, it was Angelus Temple. That's the headquarters of the Foursquare Gospel Ministry. Amy Semple McPherson, if you want to like history.
Before you go to California, you worked with rocks explosives?
Yes. I was a powderman's helper, assistant.
How did that impact your hearing?
It didn't, actually.
You've been lying all these years now.
What did you say? Yes, we were installing a hydro line along the Howe Sound. This is Britannia Beach. If you know where Britannia Beach is in British Columbia, just south of Squamish, it's just across to the west, across that sound. And that sound is about 7 miles. And we were working on cliffs there. Would travel to work every day by boat first, as prairie boys, never been on a boat before, and the boat would take you to a barge, and from the barge you would travel every day by helicopter to your site, and you would take two guys. The two guys would be working on each site where there would be power line poles installed. You would have to dig the holes. So you could call me a hole digger, PhD, post hole digger, if you want to put it that way. The powder man I worked with, he would drill the holes, and he would fill them up with dynamite, and then he even let me, pull the trigger or turn the switch connected by electrical wires to the timing caps, and that would explode. We'd have it sort of covered up so that there wouldn't be any damage to another power line, which was lower down on the mountain. And I got quite proficient in what I was doing, was cleaning out the holes after the dynamite had shattered and crushed the rock. That I too could have gone for my powderman's license, but I'm a young fellow at 2021. Rastus wants to move on, so after that I moved on to California. And just the hippie days back then, there were a lot of draft dodgers back then. The Vietnam War was on, and
the church you went to, as I interrupted you, but I wanted to make sure people heard your history with working with dynamite and rocks, and I'll fill that in later.
Yes.
Was Amy Simple McPherson's church? Were you there when there were 5,000 people in that church, or those were the earlier?
Those were the earlier days. I would say there was 2,000. 3,000 when I was there. That's the first church I've ever...
Same temple, though. It's the
same temple, yes. When that temple was built, I believe that was the largest dome on a church building in the West Coast when that was built. That's the first church when I came to that church, because I only lived a couple of blocks away from it. Echo Park in Los Angeles. The first church that I looked back, I was used to a balcony. Roseau River Baptist Church was an old dance hall. There was no balcony. Winnipeg's Calvary Temple, yes, there was a balcony, sort of like a horseshoe balcony. And when I came to Angela's Temple, there wasn't one balcony. There was two balconies. So there was one above that yet. So I was quite impressed. In fact, I used to listen to the radio in my room in Los Angeles. I had what you call a transistor radio. And I would listen to the radio, and I would listen to these radio programs. There was a Christian station. And they would say, this is live from Angela's Temple. And it sounded like a real orchestra, like a symphony orchestra playing and a choir singing. And this was on the afternoon, and this is broadcast live. And I come to that church. That's how I got to that church, by hearing about it on the radio. And when I arrived there for a Sunday morning service, wow, the orchestra was sitting right on front of the platform. I think there was sort of a pit there. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm getting that one mixed up with Radio City Music Hall in New York. But the microphones too, no, that's Radio City Music Hall. They would come up from the platform. But I was very impressed, so professional. And any performance that they had at Angela's Temple was just, a theatrical, professional performance for the Lord. This is my weekend and special occasion, but during the week, I'm a free spirit. I wasn't fully committed to the Lord. When He called me back when I was 12 years old, got baptized at 16, yes, but then I went to the city. I'm sort of like the Lot and his uncle Abraham. He just pitched his tent towards Sodom and Gomorrah. There's action taking place here. And I was kind of drawn to that. I'm thankful to the Lord, hanging around Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard. In fact, I lived on Sunset Boulevard near Angela's Temple. The Manson gang, Charles Manson and they were popular then. And as a young fellow like myself, away from home, you might want to make friends with your church gang, but yet you want this side here. This seems fun too. This is more of the spiritual side, but this one seems more adventurous here. I didn't know that the good stuff was really on the Lord's team. That's where the real adventure is. And I recall walking with one gal, and she was all dressed in black, very friendly gal. I still remember her name, Carol. And there was a place called Music City where you can go into this record store. It's a big place. And you can just take any record you want with you, and you can go and sit in the booths, and you can put, I forget if you put the earphones on, or was it just a sound booth, and you can listen to your records there, and if you want to purchase them, you can do that. But I have a sense that she was connected in some way with the Manson gang, and this is what Charles Manson did. He would send his lovely ladies out there, and get more people to join the gang. So that's maybe the closest I've come to a real danger there. After Los Angeles, I love country music. The first country music live show that I've ever been to, or concert, was in Winnipeg with Johnny Cash and the Statler brothers, the Carter family, Hank Williams Jr., Tex Ritter. These people came and did a show, and I was very impressed with that. And I was a fan of Johnny Cash until I really grew up a couple of years ago, until he died. And yes, I been to Johnny Cash concerts in Winnipeg, Vancouver, Los Angeles, and on down to Nashville, in Toronto about 6 times, stuff like that. So when you're a fan of someone, you love to go and see them in person.
Before we break for the transition to Toronto, you're in California. It's 1966, 67?
67, 68. 67 and 68.
And what year did you come to Toronto?
I come to Toronto.
Right after then? Or
after that, I still love to travel. I went to the bus depot in Los Angeles, and I say I want to go to Nashville. This is where all my, its nickname for Nashville is Music City, USA. Those are my heroes. They're the country music singers and pickers, players. I want to go to Nashville. But I don't want to travel on the expressway. I want to travel as much as possible. I want to see how the people across the United States live. I says, give me a bus. Not one of them express buses, the one that I took from Vancouver to Los Angeles. I was on the expressway. I want to see in Arizona. Take me off the main road. Take me into the little town. I want to see where the bus drops off a newspaper, the way they did in Roseau River. The newspaper is dropped off at the store for the customers to buy. And you see the people, the ordinary people. And this is what I did. It took 64 or 68 hours to get to Memphis, actually, from Los Angeles, because that bus would go off the road. He'd drop off an Indian here, pick up a couple of people here, drop off some people here. The bus was mostly full, though. And every 8 hours traveling, night and day there, you get a new bus driver. So it was myself. I actually picked up a guitar in Vancouver. I left my mandolin and banjo in Winnipeg when I moved to Vancouver. But in Vancouver, I bought myself a guitar and started to learn how to pick a guitar and chord. So I couldn't put that in the suitcase. I carried that on my back. The luggage, 2 big suitcases went in the bus luggage trunk.
Which case had all the stickers of all the cities you visited? Was that?
Yes, that's one of the suitcases. And
suitcase.
It's a suitcase. I still have that suitcase. Yes. It has the cities and states and provinces that I visited, and it's plastered. And you think that your kids will enjoy it. I have one daughter Amy. We didn't get to the marriage part, so I'm jumping way ahead here. The suitcase is there. She looks at it. Says, yeah, very nice, Dad. I thought they would enjoy it like I do. So anyways, I will take some digital pictures of the suitcase, and then I will probably give the suitcase away. So anyways, traveling across the United States, I recall, through Arizona, Phoenix, and you sing some of these songs that were popular in those days. Glenn Campbell, the lineman, I believe. It ended up close to midnight, El Paso, Texas. It's, Marty Roberts singing the song, El Paso. And from there, I had written to my mom. The highway that runs from Winnipeg south to the United States is number 59 highway. Now this highway 59, it keeps going south. It goes right through Arkansas into Texas down that way. And it's called 59. And on the border or the state line of Texas and Arkansas.
59 goes right past the front door of the church, right?
Right, that's right.
Right from
Roseau River Baptist Church, yes. And I wrote a letter to my mom from Los Angeles when I lived in Los Angeles. I says, Mom, I will be crossing the 59 highway. I don't know why I played these games. Now as a parent, that was cruel. Says, Mom, I will be crossing the 59 highway in March, and I put down more, that's the date. And she got so excited. She says, our son, Wally Coster, is coming home. He's crossing the 59 highway. She didn't know that's Texas and Arkansas state line there. Yes, and I crossed there and to Memphis. While I was in Los Angeles, I would receive letters from my dad. And my dad would address them, Wally P. Coster, And my dad would sign those letters. I believe I still have a couple of those letters.
How do you spell that? C-U-S-T?
K, with a K.
K-U-S?
Kohut is with a K, and I kept that.
C-A-R?
K-U-S-T-E-R.
C-E-R. And why did you pick that?
I just liked it. I just liked it, and it's closer.
And you officially changed your name to that?
No, not officially.